pork butt. You could use a pork butt to do something like make a sausage. You could use a beef loin if you want it to be really fancy. But like realistically, like classic. I thought I was going to sneeze. Classic meat cuts that you'd use are usually in the name of the meat, right? So you've got chuck is the chuck. That's pretty much everything that's not a major cut of meat. That's going to have some decent amount of connective tissue and fat and stuff. So that's why it's called chuck. And you've got sirloin. Sirloin, you can get a sirloin steak, and that is the sirloin, as in it's very close to the loin, right? So it's a big cut of meat, but it's not the loin, which is what you'd get if you were getting like a fillet or something like that. And you can make burger out of fillet if you want to. That's crazy though. The whole point of really grinding things is to help with the texture. So you could use it. You can make it out of flank steak and do like a fajita burger or something like that. If you want to go for that, because that flank does tend to have like a particular sort of flavor that is why we use it for steak, for instance. But yeah, you can literally use any cut of meat. You can do this with chicken if you want to. Though chicken does tend to be not quite tough enough, so it's going to be a little more tacky and sticky, and we'll talk about that a little bit later. But yeah, you can literally use any meat, any meat at all that you want.
And vegetables too, as we will learn.
Yeah, and mushrooms, exactly. The big thing that you're going to want to address whenever you're using meat is going to be fat to meat ratio, because you want to have your burgers have enough fat in them that they are going to stick together, and also that they are going to not dry out on the grill. But you don't want so much fat that they shrink or don't stick together at all. The right kind of fat is important as well. You want a fat that is solid at room temperature. If you're using something like bacon fat, for instance, or bacon itself, that's not going to be ideal for a burger, because when you're going to form your patties, it's going to be really soft, and when you grill it, it's just going to melt more. You want something like a pork leaf lard or a suet, a beef suet, something like you'd use for a bird feeder. You don't want to use the stuff you use for a bird feeder, but you can get suet at Reliable for sure, really easy, and that's going to work a lot better. And so don't worry about using heart. The reason I like to use heart, and I'll go over it when I get them out, is the fat ratio. I'll make sure to touch on that again. Hearts tend to have just the right amount of fat to make burgers. I'm just going to go check on my grill again so I can know right now whether it's working, and then we can get this thinker started.
Okay. So Chris will be back soon, and just to let everyone know, I actually have to sign off in a little bit. I have something I have to go to, but Chris is very capable of handling all of your questions and teaching you how to cook burgers tonight on his own. And I'm excited to review the whole recording afterwards, because I want to learn this as well. And new kitchen appliances excite me. I just need to find room on my counter for all of them, but yeah, there's new kitchen appliance. I always want to get it.
All right.
Good.
Just like with computers, sometimes you just gotta unplug it and plug it back in.
There you go.
So my regulator wasn't all the way tight, and that's a grill problem. The regulator is what to make sure you don't blow yourself up when you're dealing with propane. It's not all the way tight on the valve. It will restrict flow because it thinks that it's open, and even while your tank's open, it won't just shoot gas out. There's a protective valve there, and so if it's not screwed all the way in, you can't bypass that valve, and so even when it's open, you won't get good flow, which I just fixed, and I'm very excited. So we're gonna have a nice hot grill, and without further ado, I think we're ready to start.
Yeah, so I actually just told everyone that I'm gonna be taking off, but you got this.
All right, beautiful. Yeah, just make sure I'm the host so we don't drop when you leave, and then
you are the co-host, and I'm actually just gonna leave my computer on
Oh, cool. Okay, great.
So
Sweet.
I will be here in spirit, okay? And have fun, okay?
Yeah.
Okay. I'll see you soon.
All right, awesome.
Bye.
Sweet, everybody. Well, welcome. Today we are going to be making some burgers. We're going to do two different kinds of burgers. We're going to do a mushroom burger, and we're going to do a meat burger. Meat burger we're going to be using heart for, and the mushroom burger we're going to be using some of the fabulous local MBM shiitakes. I actually had a really fun time grinding them up the other day. They work really, really well for burgers. And so without further ado, we're going to jump right in. We're going to start with our grinding process because my meat's nice and cold right now. My fat's nice and cold right now. My mushrooms are cold. You want to try and grind while things are cold because the process itself is going to add some heat because there's lots of friction. And so first things first, let's go ahead and get our grinder put together here. And so this is my grinder. There are a lot of different grinders, but this one is mine. It's pretty big, but it's going to work really well. And I'm hoping that we're going to get some really, really delicious burgers out of it. I haven't used these hearts before, so I'm kind of excited. I'm just going to get it plugged in. And as per usual, I'm just going to give you a quick little look. It's not quite as exciting today, but I do have my mise en place all together over here. Got my mushrooms, my potatoes. I got a couple extra veggies I'm going to throw on the grill just because they were starting to go bad. Got my fat, my dinner rolls, and my hearts over here in the back. So everything's right here next to me, everything I think I'm going to need. I already went ahead and drained my beans because I do really want them to be as dry as possible. So if you are cooking along right now, now's the time. Go ahead and drain your beans, get them rinsed off, get them ready to go. And we're going to start this process. So most grinders have all the same parts. You've got this. This is the loading cup, I guess. You know, the things go down this tube, and then there is a screw that pushes them up against this side. And on that side, you've got some pieces, right? So you've got this is screw. This is an Archimedes screw. This is classically used to move water in olden times uphill. As it turns, things from one side get pushed to the other side. It's a really fabulous invention, super cool. You gotta love it, Archimedes screw. And so what we're gonna do with this is one of these sides, it's just this side, that's the drive train. I don't know if that's what it's actually called, but that's gonna go into the machine, and that's what's going to cause the force that makes it spin. As it spins, meat's gonna go here, get pushed this way towards this side. And on this side, what we're gonna have is we're going to have a blade, right? And so this blade's gonna be spinning as well. The blade is going to be spinning up against this. This is called the die, and this is a big size die. We want a big one for doing hamburgers. A smaller grind you might want for something like sausage, but if you use a small grind for hamburgers, it's going to taste mealy. It's going to be like it's just not designed for that. And so this is going to be here. As this spins, the blade cuts the meat, which is pushed by this screw up against the die. You get nice little beautiful pieces of meat, even from the toughest cuts of meat. And so what you want to do generally with the grinder is you want to put this whole assembly into your loader. So you've got the drivetrain over here. This is going to go into your machine somehow. Sort of tuck you guys down here so you can see me sort of setting up this one. And then all machines are different, but usually you're going to have to sort of move this, the screw, so it fits tight, and then tighten it down somehow. Some of them have like a clipping mechanism. There's all sorts of different ways this will work. Now that's nice and tight and secure, we can go ahead and put our die back on and then secure the die. And you want to tighten this hand tight. You don't want to go like super duper tight because you're going to have to take it off eventually. And the process is actually going to tighten this more. So we're good there. And then most of them will come with a little loading plate. So we're going to go ahead and put that on top. That's just going to be really helpful to help us with the process. So I think I want to try and get you guys a nice little move here so you can hopefully see things coming out of the grinder as well as me putting things in. I think that's perfect. Beautiful. That's what we're going to be grinding into. And then really we're just going to be sort of measuring stuff out here. It's going to be pretty basic and simple. I've got my MVM shiitakes right here. They're beautiful. So we're going to I've got myself a kitchen scale over here. I've got a bowl on the kitchen scale, so we're going to tare that. And we're looking for 6 ounces. So we're going to be doing 2 different kind of batches of mushrooms today. So we're going to do the sort of burger itself, which is really like the basics. This is what you'd want to use if you're just eating something. And that is going to be done with just mushrooms and black beans and oats. And then I was feeling a little fancy and fun. And so so there's my mushrooms right there. That's 6 ounces. I'm just going to go ahead and measure my mushrooms for later too right now. I believe it's another 6 ounces. ounces. I was kind of feeling fancy and fun, and so I thought, oh, what happens if I put beets in there? I was kind of hoping, to go for that sort of Beyond Burger vibe of like, ooh, it bleeds, just like normal meat. And so I put some beets in there, and while it didn't really bleed, it did have a really cool red color. And I got a little bit of extra mushrooms, so we're just going to put those in there. And so I decided, great, let's do a sort of red center. So when you grill it, it'll almost look like it's a full burger. So our first one is going to be our 6 ounces of shiitake mushrooms. You do not need to cut them up at all unless your hole is smaller than mine. So that's great right there. With mushrooms, we don't have a fat really we need to put in there because there's plenty of water moisture in here that's going to help them to stick together. So we're not worrying about fat at all. I guess the beans kind of have some fat. And then those want to go over there. We'll measure out our beans. So for the first one, it's essentially 2/3 of a can of beans. And then the second one's going to be that last third of a can. And if you're measuring, you can also do, it's about a half a cup or about a cup of beans for the first one, and then a half a cup of beans for the beet center. And the beets are really not, or the beans aren't necessary like they would be in a lot of burgers because the mushrooms, as I'm going to show you in just a second here, actually grind out really, really well. So it's pretty sweet. So I'm just going to put my mushrooms up here, and I'm going to turn this thing on. You guys aren't going to be able to see anything, or you're not going to be able to hear anything for just a hot second, but I want to push some of these mushrooms through just so you can get a sort of an idea for what they look like and for the whole process. Oh, and then really important, last thing you need is some sort of plunger to push things into the machine. I am currently using a very sort of rigged up experience here. I've got a screwdriver, but most machines will come with one. I've just happened to have lost mine, sadly. So that's what we're going to use today. And so I'm just going to turn this on. You're not going to be able to hear me for a sec. And then when I turn it off, we're going to have a little bit of, I'm not going to do all the mushrooms, just enough. You do want to put them in sort of mixed wise, so they mix themselves as they grind. But I want to show you what just ground shiitakes looks like, because I was very surprised to find out that that it works really well. So let me just show you that real quick. Okay, so one of the things about grinders is there's quite a lot of space in this center chamber. So that's part of why we have the oats separated like that. So you can actually use the oats at the end to push some stuff through. But I'm just going to show you what's come out so far. This is our shiitakes that have come out so far. And there's nothing in here but shiitake mushrooms, which is really cool. So they look like little ground pieces. But the cool part about this is when you squeeze them together, just like meat, they form a really like cohesive patty. I didn't put anything in there but mushrooms. You guys just saw me. That's literally all that's in there. And they form a really nice pattern. The problem with this, when they cook, they release some of their moisture, and so they don't stay together that well. You can grill them just like this, but I like the beans in there because the beans and the oats absorb a bit of that water and help it keep its form throughout the whole process. So we're gonna grind the rest of this stuff. I've got my beans right here. I'm gonna go ahead and put in my my half cup of oats to go with that. Just double check my recipe. I'm pretty sure it's just a half cup. Yeah, half cup for both of them. That's what I thought. Cool. So in the half cup of beans and oats right here. So we're just gonna give that a little stir, get them all mixed up together. And then since I've been already putting shiitakes through, I'm gonna put some of the beans in next. And then I'm just going to sort of put the rest of it right up top here on my loading panel pad. It's gonna make my life easy. I can just start to squish them through there as I go. Beautiful. We're going to turn the machine back on, and I'll see you guys on the other side. Awesome. Well, I hope you guys enjoyed watching that. So that was our first step in the process. That's our mushroom burgers. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to form those. Then I'm going to make some space here because I'm going to have to cut up my my meat burgers. And so at the end there, what I did is I let the machine run for a little bit. That's going to forward load everything I put in there, get it right up against the edge. And then I finished it with the just the oats. And so at the end, all that was really coming out was ground oats, which is perfect. That's what I wanted. So now we're just going to go ahead and mix this up just for a little bit. You don't want to over mix it. It's not like meat where you can really like over mix it necessarily, but it is going to be a pretty cohesive block when it's done, right? So there's our mushroom burgers, and there's a lot of mushrooms in there. You can see throughout it. It's full of mushrooms, barely any beans, and so that's going to form our outside. So I'm just going to set that aside for now. We're going to go ahead and cut up this beet that I have here, so I can do my my inside, my sort of tasty little what's the word I'm looking for? Mind bender, you know? That's not an illusion. There we go. That's the word I'm looking for. I forgot we had to do the beets, so I unplugged it. That was a mistake. What's happening? Having plug problems. There we go. Set up again, get you guys so you got a nice view. Awesome. Okay, beautiful. So this one is fairly similar to the previous one. It's 3 ounces of beans and 6 ounces of mushrooms. And then instead of the other 3 ounces of beans, we're going to put 3 ounces of beets. So we're going to go ahead and get my scale. I'm just going to come over here and cut up this beet a little bit. You don't have to take out this off the skin. I am going to take out the skin because I just don't want it. And honestly, 1 beet is usually a little bit too much. So it helps to sort of cut off some of the skin and save yourself some space. And again, you do want a raw beet. We're going to cook it just enough on the other side of things. So it should be perfect. So we're just going to cut this beet up into pieces that will go through the machine. A-okay. Give it a little weight over here. Perfect. That's 3 ounces on the nose. That's what I like to see. And I won't need my scale again, so I'm going to put this away. You could weigh your meat and your fat if you want to. We're going to talk about some meat ratios, and you do want to do that by weight, but I'm just going to eyeball it. That's just the way I do things. All right, so we're going to go ahead and put our beets through this time. And let's see, it's giving me a beautiful pink color. We're going to use that as sort of our core for our meat. All right, here we go. Beautiful. All right, that's what I'm talking about. So now we have our beets, our little, our bloody filling, if you will, for those who like to sort of imitate the other experience. And so the beets, as you can see, They're a nice, beautiful red, and we're just gonna mix those together like we did the other ones. These are a little bit more moist just because, you know, the beet has a lot more moisture, but they're gonna stick together just as well. Just gonna knead them a little bit, almost like you're doing bread. And we're just gonna go ahead and put those aside for later. We'll form all of our burgers together, but those look really nice. And you know, they stick together really well, and there's lots and lots of mushrooms in there, so they're gonna taste really, really good. And it looks kind of like meat, which is just like, it's still to this day, mind blowing. I know I like came up with this. All right, now we're gonna jump back into a little bit more of a traditional look here. Gonna tuck you guys all down, and we're gonna get into prep zone. So we want to cut up our hearts. I'm gonna say that for last though. I'm gonna get my potatoes done because I don't want to be cutting on a bloody board while I'm cutting up my potatoes. And so potatoes are gonna be really simple. I got some blue potatoes and I got some russet potatoes from Moglo. This is like the perfect russet potato. I didn't find any other ones like that. Most of them were small, but we're going for wedges. And so I'm just gonna show you how to do that real quick. You've probably done this before, but always worth it to try again. And so we're just gonna go long ways. You're gonna cut it in half. There's two ways you could have cut this, right? So this is it. You've got the big side and then you've got the small side. You want to cut along the small side. That's going to give you two shallow halves. And then from there, you can either cut down the center and then at an angle on each side, giving yourself some thinner wedges, or you can just do into thirds like this. And I usually will make that decision based off of how big the potato is, right? So if it's a larger one like this, I'm going quarters for sure, because it's just really big and I don't want something so big in my mouth. But if you know it's a smaller one, like some of these blue potatoes, I'll probably end up doing thirds. It's really just a matter of preference, but you get a really nice sort of steak fry-esque looking wedge, and that's what we're looking for. And so I'm just gonna cut up some of these. I probably have way too many, but I'm just gonna cut. If you have questions, now is definitely the time. Those of you who may have seen that first process and been like, what is happening? Now is the time to ask me what's going on, and I will take a peek before we jump into the meat section of this night. So this one's smaller here, so of course I'm doing thirds on it. Just lost one off the side. Get one of these blue potatoes. I love these things. They're so pretty, and they're really nice when you cook them. The blue gets a little bit more intense, and they taste just like normal potatoes. So it's not like you're even getting anything sort of special in that regards, but it is. They just look cool, you know, and that's a-okay. So a really nice thing, if you're ever in a rush for whatever reason, if you get all of your potatoes or all of your, just like mise en place, you know, you want to have everything in its place. If you have your things in a nice place, so that right here I'm working left to right. I have all my potatoes on the left. I can reach out and grab them with my left hand instead of having to reach across myself. So this is going to speed up my process here by a considerable amount, hopefully, and get through these potatoes in no time. And this is way more potatoes than I mentioned. I probably just bought too many. I love potatoes, especially when I can find ones that are local. I think what happened is I bought the blue potatoes, and then I saw the russets. And instead of putting the blue potatoes back, I was just like, I'm just gonna grab them both, just in case, you know. A lot of times you get potatoes and the insides are just no good, but these are all absolutely beautiful, which is awesome. I actually just had one that was so small that I just did I did quarters instead of sixths. So you know, you just kind of play it by ear, check what the potato tells you to do, and listen. You know, listen to your food. It's really beautiful experience to be able to talk to it and hear what it has to say, and then let it nourish you. See, this one's got a kind of a weird chunk, so we're gonna compost that one. I'm actually reading a book right now by the woman who runs Native Earth Teaching Farm, and I believe it's Rebecca, and she's talking to wild plants, and you know, being in contact with the plants that grow in your yard, and say hi, take a little nibble, you know, let them know how tasty they are, and they'll appreciate it. So sometimes, you know, it makes sense to have a little chat with your food. Might not work quite as well with venison for those meat eaters among you. We do have some venison heart here that I was lucky enough to have left over in my freezer, but they tend to be really, really cute. So not always easy when it comes to the brass tacks, as they say. So I'm going to stop there because that's definitely way too many potatoes. And I'm just going to cut up a couple other things. I had some zucchini that was going bad, so I'm just going to grill it while I have the grill on. And I got some onions because I really like onions on my burger, like a lot. And so we're going to cut these onions like I always do for grilling. I'm just going to take off these sort of bits that we don't want. You want to cut them in half along the root end, right? And so what that's going to do is that gives you a piece that's going to hold together. So when it's on the grill, it doesn't fall apart. And then when we go to actually put this on our burger, and so I just cut it into thirds, and each one of them has a little bit of a root end. So that's going to help keep them together. When I go to put this on my burger, you can cut off the root end if you want. It's going to burn off, actually. It's going to be kind of tasty. There's quite a lot of nutrients in the root end. Skins and roots tend to have some of the highest concentrations of nutrients because they tend to be the things that are in contact with danger. And that's kind of how nutrients work. Nutrients go to the places where danger is. And so, if you've got something that's really beat up or it's been a particularly rough year, maybe a drought or something like that, this can actually be the years where the plants are the most nutritious because they've had to put up with a lot. So they're storing quite a lot because they don't know what's going to come. So these, I'm just going to cut them into nice long planks, just like we did with our potatoes. It's also going to help them to sort of cook at a similar speed. And I don't think that one's worth it. I'm going to feed that one to the old chickens. I like my my squash usually in planks, or if they're big enough, I like to do discs. Discs can be really nice. So I'm just cutting the tops and bottoms off here, and then we're going. That half is no good. Going into halves and then planks. And this zucchini is long enough. I'm actually going to cut it into two before I do my planks, just so it's not so long that it's unwieldy. This is a sort of bonus part of the program where, anytime I'm grilling, I can never just cook one thing. I have to cook pretty much every vegetable I can get my hands on, because I just love grilled vegetables so much. That's what I ate for lunch today, and it was fabulous. All right, let's just go ahead and get this stuff in my compost, and then we can move on. Beautiful. So we've got our stuff here. Really simple for this. I'm just going olive oil. I usually go pretty heavy. You don't want it to stick. It's not gonna stick. I cook at high heat, so things tend not to stick anyways. A little bit of black pepper just to get it fancy, and I'm gonna put a touch of salt, like a touch of salt. Potatoes really like salt. It just makes them better. So we're gonna make sure we put a little bit of salt on there, even though I am doing low salt. I'm gonna have a little bit. It's gonna help bring out some of their natural sort of flavors. So maybe like a teaspoon of salt for this whole bowl, and then we're gonna do my tossing method here. And so you guys may have seen this before in some of the other programs. It's all about just sort of being in control. You want to push away from yourself a little bit, and then sort of just like sort of pull it back to yourself. And if you do that, you'll get some sort of a little rotational motion here. And eventually you're going to have some that are going to fall out. That's fine. This is way too full of a bowl. I should have stopped earlier on the potatoes. That's okay. And we're going to do a little turn. Do it again. We're basically just using that pepper as a guide. Once the pepper has started to sort of make its way through the bowl and is on all of our veggies, we're going to know that this is nice and well mixed. One more turn. Give it another little mix. Going to get these guys back in there. Beautiful. So that's nice and mixed, oiled up. That's ready to go outside and get grilled. So we'll leave that there for now. We'll come back to it. And now we come to what you've all been waiting for, the buns. No, I'm just joking. The burger time. Maybe not all of you. I know there are many of us who are not so meat inclined. And so what we're going to do here, I'm just going to move this grinder out of the way for now. We're going to go ahead and we're going to cut up our meat. So these have been frozen, and they're still a little bit frozen, which is awesome. That's what we want. We want them to be nice and cold. The colder they are, the better. So they're in a bag. I'm just going to take them out of these bags, and I'm going to get them nice and cleaned up. I'll be right back with them. By cleaned up, I just mean I'm just going to run them under some water. Make sure any of the sort of leftover blood that may be in there is nice and cleaned off. Oh, that's not a heart. Well, I guess we're not going to do venison today. That's okay. I don't know what that is. That will grind it. Why not? So the thing that I thought was a venison heart is, in fact, it looks like something else. So what I'm doing here is I'm just finding the little tubes that are go into the different areas of the heart. Just running some water in there. What that's going to do is make sure that if there's any clotted clots in there, anything like that, they come on out. You know, they will grind up. You can pretty much grind everything. Beautiful. There's one heart. Let's do this one more time. These are, you know, very similar to ours. So there's, you know, 2 ins, 2 outs. There's the other heart. There's whatever this piece of meat is, which is going to end up in the grinder as well. And I'm going to use some of this pork fat as well, just because it's here. And pork fat classically works a lot better for a sausage application, just because it is a softer fat, and so you don't really necessarily always want to use it for grinding like this. But I think just because we're using pork hearts, it does seem to make a little bit more sense. So just taking a look here at the heart. So it's a heart, which is kind of cool. Most hearts have a nice little cap of fat around the top. That is a really beautiful part about hearts. It's part of why I chose them for this program, because that cap of fat is usually about 10% of the total weight of the heart. These hearts are hollow, right? So like there's not as much meat as it looks like here. And that is a really great ratio for me. I like a 10%, sometimes up to 15. I was raised on venison, so lean meat is like where it's at for me. And so we're gonna go for 15% since we have this pork fat here. So we're gonna assume the hearts are about right. So really all I need to do is get these 2 all set. And so I'm thinking, I'm just gonna slice off a nice piece of fat here. And that seems like it's probably gonna be good. We'll take a quick peek at it all together. That's definitely more fat than that, but I think that'll sort of pick up a little bit for the hearts. And that'll take the 10% of the hearts up to 5%. So we're gonna go with that. Again, you know, fattier meat is up to you. If you want a fattier burger, by all means. Usually for burger grinds, 25% is kind of the limit before you start to get to places where it's just not gonna really do what you want it to do. So yeah, I would stick in that sort of good zone. I think I got a question maybe. Can I use red potato? Yeah, oh yeah, 100%. I always cook with skin on, just for the same reason I was talking about, you know, liking stems and roots and stuff. Is it's just that there's a lot of really good nutrition in there. And so now we're just going to cut these up. So first things first, you want to sort of shoot for a design that's going to get into your grinder. But for hearts right here, the only real part on a heart, and sometimes this is taken out, is the actual sort of it's not even not meat. It's just a little bit of sort of hard, what's the word? Stuff that's in your nose. Anyways, it's this little white part right here. It's one of the in valves, and so we want to take that off because that will grind, but we don't want to grind that, because if we grind it, it's just gonna somebody's gonna bite into it. It's not gonna be great. So we're gonna take that out, and then the heart is like really simple. You want to put it down like this, and just like with the potatoes, you want to cut it so you get 2 halves that are nice and sort of the same size. Really cool. You can sort of see the inside, and in the inside, there's a couple more parts of cartilage like that, but those aren't going to be as problematic as that first one. So from this area right here, we're just going to go ahead and cube this, and this is almost still frozen, which is awesome. It's exactly what we want for grinding. We're going to get a really good grind on that. So we're just cutting it into cubes, and we're going to toss it in our bowl, and we're just going to do that with everything. And then we're going to be ready to go ahead and run it through the grinder and start making our patties. It's going to be beautiful. Be out back and grilling in no time. So it's pretty lean meat, you know. It's a heart. It's but you know, there's just enough fat in here. So we're going to go ahead and take this ventricle or something like that. I'm sure there's a technical name. I can't remember what it is. You want to try and leave the fat that comes along with it if possible. That looks good. And again, you just want to cut this down the center. And this one looks like there was some blood that got frozen in there, so we're just going to pick that out. We don't want that. There isn't such a thing as blood sausage. It's really tasty, but we're not making that today. We're making hamburgers, and so we don't want as much of that sort of offal, and by that I mean OFF, which is, you know, that's another name for the sort of organ meat. We don't want that awful flavor, and an old frozen blood is definitely going to give us that flavor. So we're going to avoid that for today. Go ahead and put that in there. Beautiful. This is looking so good so far. And I mean, like, you could just take this right here, just like this, and make a beef stew out of it, you know, slow cook the meat. Braised heart is a really, really fabulous meat. And heart is just incredibly good for you. It's as long as you had a healthy animal in life, you're going to have a really nice tasting heart, you know, and it's going to have a lot of extra iron and such in it. I actually think this is a tongue, which is pretty sweet. So we're going to go ahead and cut that up too. and put that in there. Yeah, and we're not going to cut that up. It is a tongue, but it needs to be braised more. So it's a really small tongue, and you can actually see the inside. It's a lot of different muscles and stuff, but that will go through my grinder. But I'm not gonna mess with that today. That will get put in a little bit of a stock. Cook that down, really long, braised, and you can make something like a taco. That'd be really, really tasty. So we got all our cubes. Now we're going to get into our leaf lard. And so the one thing with leaf lard you want to make sure you avoid, just in case, sometimes it comes with the skin attached, and you do not want to grind skin. There are grinders that will grind skin. You know, a lot of commercial grinders will grind pretty much anything. But most home grinders aren't going to do that. You're going to burn out the engine. It's not going to be fun for anyone involved. So we are going to make sure there's no skin on this, which there isn't. There is a little bit of sinew, but that's totally fine. Grinders will take care of that. This is going to be, I think, just the right amount of fat. And so we'll go ahead, get that there, get our cutting board out of the way. Awesome. All right, my friends, here we go. Let's do the grinding. So we got some fat in there, nice and mixed together. You can sort of see the ratio, about 10%. You know, it's close. It doesn't have to be exact. You just want to make sure that it's nice and ground. And we're going to go ahead and run this through the machine. And it's going to look a lot different than what we were doing before, but it should taste just as good when we're done. Get you guys that nice grinding angle. And we're going to just, again, toss this all up on top. That's why this loading panel is so great. You can just sort of put all your meat up there and go to town. If you're doing larger projects, you know, you usually put it up there in batches, but for this, it's going to be great. Get my thing, and we're going into a loud noise. I'll see you on the other side, my friends. All right, we got burger meat. I'm sure you saw that when it was coming out. You were like, whoa, that looks like burgers. It really does. It's kind of an amazing thing. So I'm just going to take this meat grinder apart, unplug it. Don't want that anymore. And it's pretty easy. Once you're done, you just take that part out right there. You unscrew this. Nice and cold, which is good. And then you want to push on the part where the sort of the drivetrain is. The whole screw will come out. And usually a couple of oats as well. And it's just, there's like this big binding part at the front. That's where all the work was happening. And then I usually like to just soak that in some soapy hot water while you grill or whatever, and just let it sort of start to soak, and that'll be a much easier cleanup later if you do that. So that's what I'm doing right now. Got that in soapy hot water. Beautiful. We are looking so good. I am so excited to make these burgers and get out there and grill. All right, my friends, get this grinder out of the way. All right.